You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 240 of the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, Ben Eagle. Today, we're heading to the edge of Bodmin Moor in Cornwall to meet beef farmer Ben Thomas, who raises belted Galloway and red Devon cattle. Ben was featured in the recent regenerative farming film 6 Inches of Soil. He wasn't actually a guest that long ago at all on the show, so you might recognize him from a few weeks ago. He's a Cornishman through and through. He grew up on a family beef farm before going to Harper Adams and meeting his future wife. He manages a farm for Natural England as well, alongside his current holding. Ben, welcome back to Meet the Farmers. How are you doing today? I know that we were supposed to be recording this last week, but you had a few calving issues.
Yeah, hi Ben. Great to speak to you again. Thanks for having me back on. A bit quieter today. We are coming towards the end of calving now for Natural England down at Gosmore, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? If you have something planned in, booked in, you're bound to miss it. One of the cows are bound to know, and they like to upset your plans, don't they? So
Oh yes,
it's all good today. They're Monday, and they're all behaving. So got a free afternoon to speak to, which is great.
Yeah, well, honestly, I really appreciate you talking to me during calving. Like I say, normally I have a rule that I don't tend to get in touch with beef and dairy farmers during calving, sheep farmers during lambing, and arable farmers during harvest. But really, really appreciate it.
That's all right.
So yeah, so Cornwall, first of all, you sort of grew up there as well. Tell us a little bit about your county and the best things about it.
The best thing about Cornwall has got to be like the beaches.
Yeah.
When you have good weather in the summer or spring, and you can get down to the beach just like that. You can finish work a bit early and say, weather's great, let's get down to the beach, have a barbecue, or just have a nice walk and take it in. The coastline down here is like spectacular. I don't think you can beat it. And some of the beaches as well. You can pay to go on holiday across Europe and can't find any beaches better than Cornwall. So for me, it's got to be the beaches. And it's just great that I can farm and be so close to the coast. So that for me, that's the best thing. But also living on the edge of Bodmin Moor, you've also got the uplands that aren't too far away. So you've got a really good contrast.
And you famously have loads of tourists that go down.
Yes.
So go down to Cornwall. I mean, how much friction is there between sort of the farming community and tourists, or is it pretty good?
Between the farming community, maybe not so, because with the tourists comes an increased amount of food, and Cornish food now is like very highly sought after. It's like a great brand that's really pushed on and marketed down here in all the pubs and restaurants. So if you're producing good food, there's a great market for it down here. So I think for farmers it's good, but local people, especially people who live by the coastline, it is a bit of a nightmare when you can't say, for example, get into your favourite pub on a Friday night because it's just absolutely rammed full, and the roads are chocker. It's like you're not supposed to have many cars behind you, are you, if you're driving a tractor before you need to pull over? But in the summer, it's literally impossible. You can't get anywhere because you've got a tail of 30 cars behind you straight away. So it's a tricky one. But it does bring a lot of extra money down here. And I think the farming side of it does benefit from that as well. So yeah,
exactly. It's sort of double-edged sword, isn't it? Really, the county needs them, but at the same time, it's
I think the
it's dealing
saddest
those
thing is,
difficulties.
I think the saddest thing is that a lot of old, lovely farm buildings are holiday lets now, and worse than that, it's the coastal villages are really, very quiet in winter because they're all holiday lets and they're empty. So that's the saddest thing, that those sort of coastal communities are sort of a lot quieter than they should be.
So you grew up as the son of a beef farmer. Your dad was a beef farmer. So did you always want to follow in his footsteps?
I think so. Yeah, I've been the oldest. I was always probably the lucky one that was able to go out and ride with him in the tractor
Yeah.
when we were growing up, and was always by his side trying to help. And yeah, just I've never really thought about doing anything else. Always loved working with cattle, especially. And that's been it. I knew that I was very fortunate, really, isn't it? I did my A levels and I knew that I was doing them purely to go to hopefully Harper Adams. And yeah, so from the age of 16, I sort of really focused my college life on that, and yeah, just haven't really looked back. Really, I'm very fortunate that I've known what I always wanted to do, because I know that's not the case with a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned Harper there. Yeah, you studied agriculture there, and you also met your wife Claudia there. Tell us some Harper stories.
Half a story. Well, yeah, so what a great place to begin with. The friends you meet there are now our best friends now, and they will be forever as well. We have such a good group of friends, farming friends, and from around the country. You know, we've got friends in North Yorkshire, up in Scotland, Wales, over in Norwich near your way.
Okay.
And they're spread out and they're all doing completely different random farming things that so it's really good. You have a phone call conversation with them and they've got it's just different conversations all the time. It's not just beef farming, chickens, large mixed farming, organic, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's the best network you could ever imagine that you leave Harper with. So yeah, the network of friends and the memories there. You learn how to drink when you're at agriculture university, I say. It really pushes you on. But it yeah, story wise, wow. Trying to think now, things that aren't nothing spring. You got these random stories that aren't very podcast thing. But I guess the nicest story, is that we went back in my final year and managed to meet my lovely wife Claudie. And that was just over 10 years ago now, I think. So coming on 11 years this year. And we've just welcomed the arrival of our son Ted. So, from
Yeah,
all those nights,
congratulations.
thank you very much. All those years ago when I sat outside the SU bar and asked if she wanted to go outside for a burger. And now we've got our own farm and a little son as well. So it's yeah, the best place. Yeah, I would recommend anyone going there.
Yeah. I always love how romantic farmers are. Come and have a burger with me. That's how it works.
I know. I don't know how I did it really. Lucky guy, aren't I?
So
Mental.
straight after Harper, what did you do?
So straight after Harper, I think I was a little bit sad to leave Claudie, but me and one of my best mates from Harper, Ben Bryce, we hopped on a plane and went out to New Zealand. We always thought at Harper used to instead of writing assignments, we would waste time watching YouTube videos of the contractors out in New Zealand doing working on these huge farms and thought how cool it looked. So we applied for some jobs, booked our flights out there and got out there in what was now must have been end of 2014 and went down to Canterbury and worked for a large contractor called Jackson Homes. And it was 6 months working for them on the Canterbury Plains, and it was incredible because we every day you're going to a different farm, either like an irrigated pivot irrigated dairy unit that's just
Okay.
growing tons and tons of grass, or you'd be going up into the hills, sort of up behind the town called Methven, where in the winter it's all covered in snow, and you go up into these stations up in the hills, and it's just incredible. The farming up there was like the views were breathtaking, and yeah, day to day it was awesome to be doing such different things and speaking to different farmers. So it was a bit of an extension really of Harper Adams because there was 15 other British lads out there as part of our team that worked for the same contractor. So you do your day's work, but you also spent a lot of time. Shout out if anyone knows Methven, the Blue Pub or the Brown Pub. Great pubs in Methven, and we spent a lot of time in there. So yeah, it's great fun. And then at the end, we earned loads of money, and we could traveled around New Zealand for a month to 6 weeks, and took loads in, and managed to see a few different farms during that time as well. So yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah. My classic question to anyone who has been to New Zealand afterwards is why did you come back?
I guess it's probably because I'm Cornish, and the Cornish are quite strung to their roots, aren't they? And I couldn't, I would have loved to, but I don't know. It's just, yeah, Cornwall always brings you back.
So tell us how you secured your current farm. How did that happen? Because did the job with Natural England come first?
Yeah, so after New Zealand, I sort of worked around the country, England a little bit. Worked for a grass-based dairy unit in Shropshire, and then I moved south and worked for a large mixed estate in just south of Bath. And after that, we wanted to move back to Cornwall. We moved back first, confident that I would pick up a job whilst I was down here, and this job. Natural England's job, I was scrolling through social media one night and up popped a job advert from the local livestock auctioneers saying beef herds person wanted for Natural England. And I was like, okay, sounds interesting. I'm a beefy type. I think I can probably give this a crack. So gave them a call and managed to get an interview for that role. And then I did that for about 6 months. And then they realized they sort of needed a farm manager, not a herds person,
Okay.
to run the grazing operation down here. And I managed to get that sort of promotion, and it's been 5 years now since I've been down here working for Natural England. So it's been really good to pick that job up. And then, but one of the biggest benefits of working for a large organisation such as Natural England is that my contract's very flexible. So we get lots of holiday, and you also have a flexi contract. So as long as I do my hours, my set hours in the week, you can move those around a little bit to suit. So this was only 43 hours, and to a farmer, that's a part-time job,
That's
isn't it,
that's
really?
very part-time. Yeah.
Compared to when you're on a dairy unit, you're doing 60, 70 hours. I thought I had a lot more in me. So we were fortunate. Claudie was working for a farm doing some marketing the other side of the valley. They knew the owners of Trivedo, and they knew that Trivedo was looking for a new couple to come in to take their farm on and to farm it in a nature-friendly or regenerative way. They had only put early feelers out. They hadn't really marketed it like nationally. So we were quite fortunate that we were one of the first sort of people to come across it, and had a phone call with them, and then met up and had a few meetings, and we sort of designed a farm business plan, and a sort of a few things that we'd like to do on the farm, and they loved it. It was to be honest, it was very informal. I think these guys, I guess it's a lot of people say, don't they? It's all about the people. So they trusted us, we
Yeah.
trusted them, and we have gone into sort of a share farming agreement now, where they're supplying the house and the land, we supply the labour, and then we split the profits. And then further down the line, the profits will be split more favourably towards us. So it's a
Yeah.
great agreement, really, for it to work alongside what we do.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about Trevedo in terms of like the lie of the land, what it looks like.
Yeah, so Trevedo Farm is like a green oasis on the edge of the vast uplandness of Bobbin Moor, I guess. it We're quite sheltered, small fields, but just on the southern edge of Bobbin Moor, so we are quite high, and it does drain, but luckily it's fairly steep, but it does drain quite well, so it naturally lends itself to keeping cows out for quite a lot of the year. I've now learnt that since I've moved there. I didn't know that before. But yeah, no, it's great. It's the top side of the farm is bordered by a big old piece of common land, with a huge herd of Highlands roaming around all the time. And yeah, we're nestled in out of the way, and quite south facing, so it does grow quite a lot of grass in the summer. It's a nice spot, but we also get a lot of rain. I think last year we had in 2023 we had over 1,600 mil plus, and we've had over 340 40 mil or 60 mil in February.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh
so we're
my
getting a lot
gosh.
of rain. Yeah, getting a lot of rain, but luckily, that's why we've got the system that we run. It can cope with it. Luckily, I didn't know that. To be fair, I didn't think people have said that we're going to get these extremes, aren't we?
Mm.
And I'm actually quite proud, really, that we've got through this winter and kept the cows out with all this rain that we've had. So
Yeah, no, that says a lot. And you're in terms of your cows, you're keeping Belties, Belted Galloways and Red Devons, Ruby Red Devons. Why? Why do you like those?
yeah, so we chose those two breeds because, well, I originally the first batch of cattle we bought in at Trevetto was a bunch of belted Galloway steers. They were what I had available down at the Gosmore Natural England farm that I manage. So
Yep.
we don't fatten any cattle down there. We needed to sell them, and that worked perfect for us. So we bought those. Um, and since then, my parents have been breeding pedigree Devons for quite a long time now. So I also know those cattle and how hardy they are and have a bit of a soft spot for them. So I've kind of stuck to those two breeds. Why those two cattle are really hardy. We are keeping our cows outside all year round, so they need to be able to cope with that. The Belties put on these fantastically long, dual layered coats that they don't feel the cold. And the Devons put on loads of fat to keep them warm, so they are able to thrive through the winter as well. And because we operate 100% pasture system, we didn't want any sort of cattle that needed a lot of feed going in them to finish as well. So wanted a small to mid frame cow, so the Belty and the Devon, um, that we would be able to finish off grass a lot easier without buying any inputs in to finish them. So that's the main reasons, really. But they're so hardy and docile and lovely as well that they make it a pleasure to work with them. So yeah, they really suit the system. Really, that's the main reasons why we have them.
Yeah. And tell us a bit more about your system in terms of your rotation and how you're moving the cattle.
So we designed the system to fit around our day job. So it had to be super low maintenance as such. It had to be something that I could do really quickly in the morning and go to work. So carving cows was out the window, carving or lambing anything, or so that was out the window. So we wanted to have a finishing system where we buy in stores, fatten them, and then market the meat at the end.
Yeah.
That sort of system also lends itself to being quite regenerative in the way that you can do that on a rotational system around the farm. So we've just designed it's a really simple 60-day rotation around the growing season, I call it. So from between April, 1st of April, roughly now, until into December, because Cornwall keeps growing grass nearly all year round.
I was going to
I call
say,
that
yeah, when we're talking the growing season, you're talking slightly different to the rest of the country down there.
yeah. um, and it's probably longer than that, but is in this mild winter. So yeah, it's that during that period there, we'll operate a 60-day rotational system. So we'll graze that area of the farm once, and we won't be back there for 60 days. That just really works well, and the fact that we've got about 60 acres that I use as that summer rotation, and we've got a bit extra that we use for making hay. So it just works well. It's an acre a day. We have also got quite a lot of fields that are an acre, so it makes that rotational element really simple because there isn't as much fencing to do sometimes, which is great. Um, the system has to be really simple. And so going out and having one group of cattle that you move once a day onto the fresh grass, and the only other work we have to do is weigh them and then pull them in every now and then, draft off the ones that are fat to go to the abattoir, and that's it. It has to be really simple to work alongside our day jobs, and that sort of system to me seemed the most obvious. By by nature of having these long rotations, you're creating so much more habitat on farm. Your cows or your livestock are only in one place at one time. The whole rest of your farm, you could say, is given over to nature because your animals aren't in there. all those fields are resting and recovering, and you're getting these pastures, in your fields that are just absolutely full of insects. In the middle of the summer, I've never seen anything like it. Um, with the long rested pastures, and it's brilliant. So that's the sort of nature side that the owners wanted to see alongside what I already knew I could do, and it's combined really well. It's just simple. It's just like nature friendly farming. It's just simple. It's easy. We're not fighting nature. We're just going with it. I don't want to be working out complex fertilizer applications. I cannot. I do not want to do that. To me, that's like not the sort of farming I want to do. I want to be
Yeah.
out in the fields with my cows, learning the lie of the land through the seasons. To me, that's farming.
Meet the Farmers is brought to you by RuralPod Media, the only podcast production agency to specialise in the rural sector. We're on a mission to make rural stories mainstream and help businesses, organisations, and communities like you tell your story through podcasting. Podcasting is a fantastic way of connecting with your audience, whoever that might be, getting your message out there and networking with leaders in your niche. RuralPod Media can help you by launching your new podcast or helping you with the technical side. We also provide podcast training and an audit service if you already have a podcast. You're not sure where to take it to next. For more information or to book a call, visit ruralpodmedia.co.uk. That's ruralpodmedia.co.uk. Let's move towards the film, and we touched on this a bit when you came on last time with Claire and Colin, and but I mean, 6 inches of soil. How did your involvement with the film come about?
So I think it was during the. It's funny actually when we had these initial conversations with one of our landlords, Simon. He sort of mentioned, if you take this farm on, also know this producer Claire, who might be doing this film on regen farming, and I think you might be the perfect thing for it, the perfect livestock person for it. So he said, if you want to do this, there might be an extra thing of being part of the film. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be any good for that. And we kind of forgot about it. And
Famous
then
last words.
yeah. A few months later, Claire rang up and I had this brilliant conversation with her. I sat in my Land Rover. It was the end of the day, and I was in there for over an hour, like nearly hour and a half, just chatting all things sort of like regen farming, and we just had the best conversation about different techniques or different people who are doing great things, and I couldn't believe that she was so aligned with my way of thinking, but also switched on to it all as well. And I thought, wow, if this lady that's producing this film is, got this level of done this amount of background work already, then I'd be happy to be involved with it. So, yeah, sort of how it came about, and I guess we kind of thought. Claudia, my wife, is very good at. You must always say yes to all these sort of opportunities,
Yeah.
and so just keep saying yes. And then here we are. Now, the film's out.
Yeah. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, and please, listeners, yeah, at the very least, look it up on the website and watch the trailer. It's fantastic. But tell us a bit about the film and how it's going down locally as well.
The film follows three young farmers, or just sort of hyphenated young there. We for a year across their farms. So the sort of first year of them doing it, I guess. We There's myself, a livestock farmer. There's AD, who's horticulturalist. She's growing a lot of vegetables, and then Anna is the young arable farmer as well. So she's working with her dad, and she's also integrated sheep into their farming arable system. So it follows the three of us for a year. It's got some great experts that feature along the way that give us some guidance and really motivate us to keep pushing with what we're doing and going down the journey. But I think where Claire and Colin, the producer and director, have really nailed it is that I've had comments locally from farmers that have really enjoyed it and really sort of made them think differently about soil. But also, it's making people think, people that aren't farmers, just the normal Joe public, making them it's at a level that they can understand it as well.
Yeah.
And I think that is where it's achieving a lot of success, I guess, is that it's, relatable to everybody and it's understandable, and a lot of people are finding enjoyment out of that. So I can't believe about how many small village halls and things like that, little small communities that
Yeah, it's
are
great.
showing it and creating these lovely events. And it's just awesome that it's sparking all this conversation, but also, people are having lovely evenings going to watch the film and having great panel discussions after. And I think it's a really great movement or thing to be a part of, really. So,
Yeah, I think for me that's one of the
yeah,
best
chuff.
things about this film has been all those local showings. And again, listeners, have a look at the 6 Inches of Soil website, and I think lots of those are listed on there.
Yeah, they're all on the website. Yeah, and then more and more growing all the time. I think it's crazy in number.
Yeah, that's great. Have you been surprised by anything since the film was released?
Not really. I believe in what we're talking about in the film. I'm a few years now into the way of farming in this way, low input, regen, nature friendly, whatever you might want to call it, and I really believe in it. And so I'm not too surprised that a lot of people are getting it, and but maybe what's been a bit of a surprise is how many people are coming to me for advice when
Okay,
I don't feel like I'm at that stage of my life yet. So that's been a bit of a surprise, yeah.
okay. And I suppose that sort of maybe links to my next question, which is about the general challenges question. When we look at the industry as a whole, there's plenty out there, but in terms of challenges and opportunities in farming at the moment, where does the land lie for you?
Challenges it's got to be financial for me. So many farmers are suffering to make it pay, and then therefore they're going out of business. And it's always it's a lot of the small to medium sized guys as well, because financially they're not making it pay. And is it perhaps because their systems are like quite highly dependent on inputs, and inputs are then really affected by global happenings, wars in Ukraine, and all of that thing is what we designed Trivedi. You want the landscape to be resilient, but you also want your farm business to be resilient as well.
Yeah.
And so we don't buy any inputs, any fertilizer, we don't buy any feed, so we're not reliant on these global fluctuations. And then therefore our business is much more resilient. And then therefore we can then do these nature friendly things, like maybe we don't have to be so productive on every single little acre to make the farm business pay. And that's for me the biggest challenge in the industry at the moment is how food perhaps isn't valued, and how a lot of farmers just are struggling financially to make it all work. And perhaps that's where I see the opportunity, I guess, as well, is that we all, as human nature, isn't it? We don't like change, we resist it. And perhaps that's where the opportunities are. There are different methods of farming that aren't so reliant on inputs, and then therefore hopefully you can make your business more resilient. And for me, perhaps my thing that I say is like a message of hope is we're looking to scale up what we're doing. It works financially, and hopefully we've done all the baseline surveys, so we'll be able to prove that nature wise it's going to work as well. But things on the ground that things you see, it looks great, but financially it works, and we want to scale it up. And at a time where you hear so much negativity in the farming press about farmers, constantly being hammered by large, the big processors and that. But if you actually scale it back, look at what your farm can produce by itself, and then therefore, and then try and market that, not locally as such, but I try and add value to it by selling to butchers that actually, recognize the value of what you're producing. Or there's loads out there. The online butchers we sell to, they're after more and more beef and meat, red meat and chickens all the time. So
Hmm.
the opportunities are there.
No, I think that's a really, really good point. And for me, one of the most exciting things is to see so many farmers actually, including yourself and especially younger farmers, thinking outside the box a little bit and doing these kinds of things because it is happening.
Yeah, exactly that. For young people, money is a massive barrier to start off with farming. And and if you can design a system that's low input and the like, you don't have to outlay loads of capital to get it going. So the opportunities are there. So yeah, that's it. It's got to be positive, and also we need lots of small, don't mean small to medium sized farmers. We need more. Like they're going, but we it needs to be they need to be supported, and so hopefully the more opportunities that youngsters can farm in this way. And also for me, farming, like I've worked on these large farms where we're driving tractors day in day out, but you get bored of that, and you're not connected to your soil perhaps, and it's like sort of getting back onto your land,
Yeah,
and it's not as much as like some of these things like mob grazing or electric fencing are kind of relatively modern bits of technology or ideas. A lot of the things we do are um, harking back to traditional farming practices, like
yeah.
building fertility in your pastures. It's not new. It's what our grandfathers and our great grandfathers and all the people before them were doing. It's exciting.
It is. It is. In terms of your future, the future of Trevado, what's your vision? Where do you want to be in a few years' time?
For our vision of Trevelo, I'd love it to be a sort of a because Trevelyan's got a bit of a limelight, I guess, now, and the fact it's been part of this film, it's got a bit of a following. But I'd love for it to be a bit of a demonstration of how you can farm up in the uplands, near the uplands, but farm profitably. So I'd love to be able to get a few more years down the line so the business is really settled. We're not growing and we're not shrinking or anything, and we're just settled. And then we can really say, look, this is the beef that we're producing per acre, and then this is sort of our profit per acre, perhaps, and for it to be, like a great example of what you can do by farming with no inputs and with nature and producing brilliant tasting food. So that's my sort of shorter term aim, and then longer term, I love breeding cattle, and I would love to have a bigger farm so that I could, scale up what we're doing, perhaps do it full time, and have some mixed farming and there's some arable as well. I think I love the idea of these sort of heritage wheats and things now that a lot of guys are growing. To me, that would be really interesting to get stuck into. So
Hmm,
that's what I'd like to do a bit more longer term.
fantastic. Watch this space. We're going to move
Yeah.
on to the quick questions, which are nothing to do with farming. The first is, if you had a favorite book or film, what would it be?
Favorite book? Oh, has it got to be not related to farming?
Oh, no, no, it could be related to farming. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't need to
Yeah.
be, but it can be.
Okay. I think I think my favorite farming book is a book that I read a few years ago, just as we started Trevelo, was James Rebanks's English Pastoral.
Yeah,
Um, I just loved the theme that ran through it about talking about what he learned from his grandfather, what he walked around and he used to take in and see, noting when the swallows might come back, or what different animal was, using that part of the farm for. I feel like we're losing that connection to the past, but I really resonated. I loved that in the book, and yes, shaped like my view of Trevelo more, how I want to farm as well. So loved that book for that, really. Sort of how the generations before have passed on so much knowledge, and perhaps we're losing it now, but we really want to try and keep that alive. So I love that book.
nice. I think that's
So yeah,
that's the first mention we've had of that book as well, which is yeah, a great shout out. The second one,
oh,
if you
really.
could have any superpower, what would it be and how would you use it?
So I love this question. I always joke, if I could have any superpower, it'd be the ability to read my wife's mind. But no, more seriously, I'd love to be able to fly. Actually, I've just mentioned the swallows. But being able to fly around like they do, around the fields, around the countryside, and to be able to get and just take in so much and be able to see it all from such a great angle would be awesome. It'd also save a lot of time on these busy Cornish roads in the summer.
You would as well. That would be very useful.
Yeah.
Um, what's the main thing people should know about you to understand you?
Oh wow, that's a good one. Probably I do like to talk about cattle quite a lot, cows quite a lot.
Yeah.
So gonna always be yeah, we've always got to try and not talk about farming when we're in social groups. But yeah, I think if you knew that I love cattle and farming, then you're always gonna be able to um have something to talk about with me, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And the final questions, what is your message for the public, Ben?
Perhaps like much the same as you know if you buy a piece of kit or I don't know I don't know, not say a car, but if you when you buy something you kind of get what you pay for. So with food it's the same. You buy the cheapest ultra processed stuff, it's no good for your body. But if you can try and meet your local food producers and build a relationship with them, you're benefiting everything so many ways. You're benefiting your health, which at the end of the day is number one, and then your local communities through supporting them financially, socially. It all builds up from it. So, yeah, I think my message is to try and seek out local food producers and consider spending more on food because at the end of the day, it's your health, and the more you spend on food, it's going to help that. So that's what I think.
Okay. And your message for farmers?
Move your stock, move them more frequently, move them more. And the benefits you'll see in such a short time, but you'll wonder why you've waited so long to do it if you haven't done it already.
Nice. And finally, your recommendation for a blog, podcast, or social media account to follow, which can be farming, but it doesn't need to be farming. And you
You've got
and
the
you,
good
you
questions
could
here.
you could mention 6 inches of soil, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
there
it
we
doesn't
go.
need to be.
I'll do, yeah, I'll do two. 6 inches of soil. If you follow them on social media, you'll see all the great things they're doing to promote British farming, I guess, and hopefully you'll see a screening near you that you can get down to. Um, and then a podcast. I like to because I play rugby to get off farm and forget about farming and like reset. And at that time, you just completely forget about life, I guess,
Yeah.
and going on just in that moment. And so, podcast for me, there's one called The Andy Rose Show. He's a
Okay.
Kiwi, and he interviews these like mega interesting people that have had this like most outrageous story in their life, or really interesting people, and they're always about an hour and a half, and that entire time I'm just sat there and you forget everything else that's going on and you're just obsessed with listening in on this podcast. And it's a shame because he has stopped doing them, but he's got like over 100 there he has done that you can all access online, obviously. And it's just,
Nice.
yeah, it's such a good way to switch off, forget about all your worries, I guess, isn't it? And listen to these like outrageous stories that you'd never think are true, but they are. So yeah, that's one that I love that one.
That's a great shout out. I'll put that in the show notes. Um, that's it, Ben. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, good luck for the rest of carving as well, I probably should say.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, no worries. We've only got three left now, so we've had a really good time. Actually, we've carved all but four in the first 3.5 weeks. So I can't believe how well they've done. So it's been good carving. So as long as it stays dry now for a
Hey,
couple of weeks, then we'll be okay.
I think that's what every
But
farmer
not for
in the
too long.
entire planet is saying at the moment. Yeah.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? But it's a challenge, isn't it? It'd be boring if it was easy all the time. So
There
got to
is
keep
that.
rising to it.
Yeah, and yeah, any farmer out there who is still underwater or struggling with the weather, keep your chin up. And yeah, look out for each other as well. That is it for today. A huge thank you to my guest, Ben Thomas, for coming on the show. And thank you very much for listening. If you can do one thing, please share this episode on your socials. Tell someone you know about the podcast, spread the word. That would be great. Next time, we'll be heading up to the Yorkshire Dales to meet beef and sheep farmer Lee Weston. Don't forget to check out our sister show, Rural Business Focus. You can find that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else. I'll be back with you next week, but for now, I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers, and thank you very much for listening.